Sanjeev sir, I think we can begin.
Yeah, just give me a minute. There's some network issue out over here, so
Yeah.
we are just reconnecting. Give me a minute.
Yes, sir. Sure, sure. Shraddha ma'am, you can begin minute Sanjeev sir gives go ahead.
Yeah, ma'am.
Megna, they're just fixing the issue. In a minute, I think it should be there.
Small.
Yes, you are able to see that.
Yes. Yeah. So, hi, good afternoon, everyone. The Insights team of MS Raheja School of Architecture welcomes you all to the session on Design and Innovation by architect Sanjeev Mehta. He is an alumni of LSR and also the principal architect of Ethic Architects and Associates. EA was formed almost 2 decades ago by him, and his hard work and perseverance has taken the company to new levels. EAE now is a successfully established company, not only in India but also overseas. So currently working in more than 12 cities in India and globally completed almost 40 million square feet. They have also designed around 25 million square feet in India more than 50 professionals working together in Mumbai, Dubai, and Kenya. So now I welcome architect Sanjeev Mehta and request him to start his presentation.
I thank you very much for a brief introduction. I really thank the company, all the faculty members and everyone to giving a chance for showcasing some of the work. Let me tell you one thing that I was from the same college, and it was a great journey of almost like 21 to 22 years of the professional practice. And before we started, I had a good experience with one of the leading architects in India, working for almost like 7 years with him. Today's presentation, what we are doing, is not going to be like a webinar. It's going to be more like a discussion, which it will be more preferable if all the students and everyone has some query or a question, ask me, because it's not going to, we are not going to stretch the whole presentation more than 20 minutes, 25 minutes. We'll be just showcasing some of the project which might be helpful. Let me tell you one thing, any of the webinar of 20-30 minutes cannot teach you much of the thing in a professional practice. I'll be talking more on a professional system, how we work outside and how different is from the college life, and the different way the professional works outside in teamwork and everything, with a large scale project to the small scale project. Like just as you got the brief of our company, like we've been practicing in almost 3 countries, India, Kenya and Dubai, with a professional almost like 55 to 60 professional working in my office. And yes, we've been doing a lot of projects from a gated community to the shopping malls and a senior living and many much more other projects we are doing it. Like as I told you that we'll be discussing some of the project today which really might be helpful to you, like how we do it in college and how we used to do professionally. Like in the college, we've been, I think everyone must have been taught in the first year that form follows function. But yes, in today's practical life also, I would say it's very much true. We've been taught almost like 25-30 years back that form has to be followed with all the functions. In today's also, we must be seeing a lot of buildings with different kind of a form, different kind of a shape. But ultimately, when the building is built, it looks good from outside, but maybe after a few years, people realize that a lot of negative spaces inside and it's really not workable. So some of the project which we'll be discussing and how we design the complete formation of the structure with the concept and taking into consideration certain parameters and the climatic conditions, a lot of other things. Initially, normally when we used to be in the college, for us, like computer was something like an alien feature. Like if someone says that I'm working on a computer and I'm going to get my sketches and all that, it was really like, wow, it's something a big thing. But in today's, yes, I think there's a must thing. But we are from the age where, it's difficult for us to grasp with that computer thing. So still today we do all the sketches manually, which then we transform with a professional architect in our office through computer sketches, and then we showcase to all the clients, and then the project starts from there, and then the complete teamwork starts. We have seen that when we used to be in the college, we feel, yes, I mean, say once the architect design, the structure is going to be made straight. It's not like that in the practical life. But I would say the type how you design in the college and how you do in the professional is more or less the same. It's only thing in professional experience and working it outside for a larger project, you really need a teamwork. And it's not only that architect design, it is actually 100% implemented in the site, but for that you need to have a good teamwork. You can see one of the graph what I'll show you right now. Like architect is the center of the code. It's like a main nucleus which you're going to be we design, and in fact you're going to be doing the same thing right now. But it's always supported by all the consultant. Like the main is the client who gives the projects, and from there you design the stuff. But after the designing and getting it approval from the local authorities and everything, there are a series of the consultant which help you out, which needed to be helped out for taking up this thing further. Like for example, from the structural engineer to the landscape, MEP, HVAC, BOQ, tendering, and of course the financial part is a major part, which I think most of the students neglected, which I would say it's the most important part in the practical life also. Because many times, many projects are apart from design governing, also the financial aspect plays a major role in it. Yes, many times we've been designing and there are many failures. Like a certain project, we did the presentation for the first time, we didn't go through it. Second time, we didn't go through it. Third time, we didn't go through it. And fortunately, we tried for the fourth time. So like failure and success are the part of every design. And yes, it went through it that way. So every time when, as a student, it's my opinion toward you that when you design something, it's not always that the designs are great and good, but it's always come with an experience and a series of a discussion with your faculty members and all that thing. But yes, always you should keep on trying and work hard because there's always 100% scope for the improvement in design. Even after the finalization of design, there's always a scope for the development in it. Now, normally the process goes this way in the professional. Every professional, it's not with we, but every professional, either they get a email or a call from the client, how, with a different kind of their plot sizes, and they get a different requirement, what to build on it. Normal process, yes, we do a site visit, and for every time after the site visit, there's a detailed case study has to be done, which is my opinion that everyone need to do a detailed case study, because every time as an architect, you yourself will be developing maybe a hospital, maybe commercial part of it. So every time is a new story for us. But let me tell you one thing, that architecture is one of the best profession because it's not like an accounts or an engineering where, we will taught the formula 30 years back, which is still repeating the same formula. For us, every project is a new story. The same thing is going to be repeated for you all also. So that every project, you suppose today you are designing a residential, tomorrow you'll be designing maybe a big gated community and maybe sometime a shopping mall. So the case study and the detailed study of that particular subject plays a very important role. Normally, initially, every architect, which you also are doing it right now, you need to develop a basic concept and the thought process, how the thing works. And then after the basic sketches, all the architectural drawings and all that thing, whether you do it manually or it goes on a computer, and the way the series of the designs gets developed. And after that, normally there's an engagement with the client, which we call as an agreement. And once the agreement is done, we go to a next level of much more detailed development of the drawing for a government approvals and all the licensing work and everything. And after that, yes, in between that government approval and the construction work, there's a detailed series of good for construction drawings and the details are being made, which in fact everyone need to do it so that, and in between that the total teamwork has to be taken into consideration of the structure, the MEP and everything which plays a role. So like an architect is not only just need to design, but it's going to be a central feature where everyone has been focused on you and you need to really govern the whole system and make it a right design, which can be still during the stage of construction, you get the same product. Like some of the projects which I would like to show you is one of the project which is a gated community. A few years back, we went to the site, it was almost like around 20 kilometers from central Pune. Site was totally barren, there was no water, nothing. It was very surprising to see like how we will be able to design on this, not even a tree. But then somehow the client told that we need to create something like that over here where the people get a maximum privacy plus different community sort of a living, and that's where it hit the mind like a community living. So we took a concept in such a way that we designed the structure in a cluttered fashion in a 6-6 unit together with a central courtyard system. Initially, we just took the plot and we just saw what are the buildable areas and the central open space and everything with the sun direction and the wind. After that, we decided to take a concept in such a way that it's a nice growing stem with all the different leaves, and all the red structure what you see on your screen are like a different community centers with a 6-6 cluster together and a courtyard in the center. And then we started breaking up the individual masses so that the wind can easily flow inside, and the overall structure become a cluster of 6 with a central courtyard and everyone having their own private gardens on the rear side as well as central large courtyard. So it become a nice gathering place for everyone where people can really enjoy, and there's a sense of a privacy. Plus, security also increases because you're still staying in a system of a group over there. When we designed the whole thing, we realized that when the building we are making in a cluster form, there's going to be slightly a privacy issue. So we started designing a courtyard in every area, which a large tree, so that the trees obstruct the privacy and the get the privacy of every unit. And this was the final outcome of the thing. So this is the actual pictures, what you see, like how it's been designed and placed at the site. This is the look-alike of the central large garden. Of course, now a lot of trees and everything has been grown in a very large scale, so you get a lot of good privacy over there. So one more structure which is already right now what we are designing, and it is almost 30% completed. It's going to be, we decided, to make something very different kind of a structure. It has a main junction road in the center. Now the main key part was like how we design altogether a different kind of a structure which can be really highlighted from the road. Now everyone knows that everything has been now available on online, and most of the shopping malls and other retail facilities are not working well. So this was a very big challenge for us, that once the construction is completed after 2 years, how it still can be balanced with the proper sales and people still coming in and using it to the larger extent. We tried to create a nice walking street, taking it to the concept of a typical Pune Wada style, and the whole street we have designed more than around 600 to 700 feet, and probably it's going to be the largest walking street in Maharashtra with a shopping mall around, and it's going to be completely filled up with all the artifacts and all the art area where any artist can go and display their work, or a musician can go and play their work. And the design of the facade has been done in such a way that you get a complete different shades of lighting throughout the year, so that every 2 to 3 months you feel the whole structure has been designed separately. Now these are some of the courtyards and the large walking street in the shopping areas. We have designed in such a way that every people from the small young people to the senior people, they get a complete all kind of facility, from the restaurant to the dining to the shopping to the offices. So it's like a multi-usable complex. Now after designing so many of the things, we realized that many of the structure what we do in India, till now we have noticed that they are not user friendly for the senior housing. Then we come up with a concept that why don't we design housing which is purely used by the senior. And then we did few of the project and did a lot of study where is the senior housing, how they function, how they do it, and how it can be designed. So there is a concept called a senior housing, which the houses are pretty compact in the sense much more comfortable for a senior to use it, easier to navigate, and very less maintenance is required in this kind of a thing. So there's a different kind of a concept of the housing where senior, anyone above or 55 or 60, they stay together, become a nice big community. And normally there are different kind of senior housings there in India and in abroad. Some are like a long-term care, then maybe certain are just an assisted living residence. Some are only for the people who have a dementia and a different kind of disease, and some are totally independent with complete services and activity in the community. People have it in mind that senior housing means it has to be low-key structure, but no, it's not a fact. Like senior housing, it can be a low-key structure, low-height structure, maybe 2 to 3 floors, maybe 20 floors. Like if you see a lot of structures in the world only using for the senior housing, it's a different variety. Maybe in a cramped place, if you're going to make the housing for the senior, it's going to be like maybe a high-rise structure. But yes, all the facilities which are related to the seniors, from their daycare centers to the hospitals to their polyclinics to the spa area, and everything are being incorporated in this. This is kind of the project which we try to create with almost like around 27 floors. We try to create a huge walking street on the ground floor with a huge shopping, and on the first, second and the third level we design a huge club which is almost like a 30 to 40,000 square feet with all the activity from the spa to the swimming pool and everything. This was the basic concept derived in our mind when we do it. When you do a large structure, you normally see the first image like it's a monotonous structure which you see everywhere. A normal architect, will just do there's a two structure on the top and a horizontal shopping and a parking below. We try to break a small cutout at the lower level with a huge open terraces. And on the ground, we are just giving the overall look as a pillar of a strength arcade, like a normal pillar which gives shopping complete a huge high-end walk. And then slowly we started to bridging the gap between and to have it a visual connect. We broke the structure, and then ultimately you can see the last slide with the bottom lot of terraces and the open spaces we created on the lower level and the upper level. The whole structure was in a staggered part to get a more visual balance of both the sides. So this was the final product, and the whole thing thought of designing in an S4. S4 in the sense is like a concept which gives you a staying, your security, your shopping and socialize. So for any of the seniors, they don't have to worry anything about going out. It's everything inside. It's like a small world, like a complete cycle where you shop, socialize and stay. And all the activity from their daycare to their spa and everything has been designed in this manner. So these are some of the photograph which you can see on your screen right now, which has the huge open gardens at the deck level, and on the top level there's a huge swimming pool with different kind of an activities. Now there was another one of the concepts which we did it, which is a very low-key structure. We went to this side and I was just talking to the client, and it was very different thought process in it because the huge contour of almost a span of 80 to 90 feet. And this project was in Lavasa, and normally one believes that senior housing in the house should be flat, it should be everywhere, wheelchair friendly. So this is one of the biggest challenge for us to design this kind of a structure on a contour of 70 to 80 feet, whereas almost every house need to be wheelchair friendly, all the roads need to be wheelchair friendly. And yes, it's altogether different. All the activities, clubs and everything need to be all at the same level. So this was the overall layout. When we saw the site, there's a beautiful water body running in the center of the plot, and we said, wow, I mean, this is going to be a real great project to deal with. And we decided to keep the same water body, just connecting all the structure through the bridges of the water body. On one side of the thing, we took all the club activity, and on the other side, all the houses in it. Like these are some of the pictures. What you see is like the senior housing and how it can be balanced nicely with the nature. And there was one more senior housing which we are doing, which is in Goa, which is a ground and 4-story structure. The similar kind of a system was there. The contour was almost 40 to 45 in a span of 5 to 6 acres. It was a big challenge because the site was pretty small and the contour being a very high. We try to design in such a way, taking a concept that everything we try to took it inward looking, so that all the residents and the apartment for the seniors are inward looking toward the club and the garden area. All the car movement are on the periphery side, so there's no car movement inside the complex. All the vehicular entry, we are just trying to take it on the peripheral side. If you see the layout, it's like a different structure, and all the vehicular activities are taken in the corner, in the side of the periphery. So this is the overall glimpse of how it's going to be a senior living. Now actually everyone might be confused like why I've been talking senior living, because I would like to explain you what's the difference between senior living and normal housing. I would say it's more or less the same, but with certain specification which normally people which are required after 60 years of an age, like what things are required, like from your grab bar to the switches to the color coding to the flooring, everywhere the specification need to be detailed studied. So this is how the basic senior housing living is there coming up in India in a very large way. So these are some of the projects which we are doing it right now in India, and the different kind of a concept, how we doing in a different way. Now, I would request any of the faculty member or something, if they can, they have any query or questions regarding how we work professionally or how the student need to be taken care when they go out and work professionally. I have seen many of the students, they just finish the architecture and start their practice. Yes, that's good. But for us, example, we started the practice immediately after leaving the college. But we lost first project, we lost second project, we lost third project, we lost fourth project. But then slowly, yes, the failure is always given us a lot of success. So that's how I would recommend to everyone that every stage of failure you learn something, and I think that's a big thing for everyone to get a good failure, maybe at an initial stage, not necessarily, but yes, it can be a big thing. I would request everyone, if there's any query regarding the structures or how we take it professionally outside, or how we work with the structural engineer, how architects need to be equipped with the knowledge of a structure, so that when you are actually working on a different kind of a situation, like in India when we work, the situation is something different. When we work in Dubai and Saudi, the situation is different. When we work in Kenya, the situation is totally different. So it's always a different situation which you need to really get adapted to it and take it further. Megha, is there any queries or something we can just take it up?
Yeah, I think, sir, Deepa
Yes,
ma'am
yes.
has.
Yeah, so there is one question from my side that how architects decide about the form of the structure? Like, can you elaborate something on that? That how to evolve a form?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, because normally we have seen that many of the designs are a form based, but it's always we try to take complete requirement of the thing, and it always the form is a development part of it. It's not that you dream a form and then you make the structure. It's always goes with a series of your requirement as a form and the concept how you develop. Also, it governs a lot of things on how the site conditions are and how it can be taken care. Obviously, you need to have it, because I believe that everyone can design something different. If you give the same project to 100 architects, it's going to be different concept of 100 different concepts. But a right concept and the right form can always be derived by doing a lot of proper study of the site conditions, the wind movement, the sun path, and yes, many other parameters which come into the picture.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
That's insightful. Yeah.
So actually, in an extension of what you were explaining, even in the presentation and what you've said now, when you talk about the study or the initial study aspect, so of course, as uh, when we are students, we make them do case studies or we make them look into things into detail. But in profession, do you still do it? Do you need to do it? How do you look at things differently? Are there case studies that you do, or do you have to visit places sometimes? If you could elaborate on the study aspect of it now, especially when we are talking about senior housing, I think so there must have been a fair amount of study that you must have had before the first project that you did. Now, of course, over the years, I'm sure with experience, your team must have gotten a finesse over it. But how did you begin?
Yeah,
Uh,
Meghna, to be very honest with you, till date today, we do a lot of case study before we start any of the project. And I think case study really helps us, even at this stage, after of 25 years of experience, to design a project much better. Because the case study gives you much more detailed thing, what you needed, what you're missing in the thing. It's always not that we are right. Because whenever we design, we always feel that, yes, this is the best design. But no, when you see the lot of other project into the case study, you realize that you really need to improve the thing, and that's how you start with a case study. Which even for the senior housing, when we started a lot of doing many of the senior housing projects, we did a lot of case studies in India, in US, and in other few countries, like how the senior works, how what their requirements are. So like the case study, I would say, is the first part of it. Study of the site is very important. The study of the soil condition is very important, which most of the people just study on the paper, the contour drawing and all. No, I would say it's a more important part of it. Like you can visualize it when you go on the site. It's altogether a different thing. maybe on the paper everything looked great, but when you go on the site and visualize it, taking into consideration a lot of your other parameters, so everything need to be considered from your case study to the site visit. That's very important.
So then how do you say that how is practice different then from say learning, today as a design project? How is a brief different or is it any different?
See, when I was in first year of architecture in the same college where we are just talking right now, and even in the final year, the design process, what we used to follow, like from the case study to the block model to the sketches and then going it further, today we're doing the same thing. It's absolutely the same. The process is the same, whether you do small project or you do a large project or you do a shopping mall or whatever. But now when you work it professionally, the advantage to work in the college is that, you know, it's going to be only guided by you. But when you work professionally, it's been guided by a lot of parameters. The first and the important thing, please, is your financial part of it. Because every time it's not that because in college you're not going to talk anything about the finances and how the project is going to be, what the scale of the project, how it's going to be done, what's going to be future of the project after 5 years. But in actual reality, there's much more difference. You really need to be strong enough to coordinate with all the consultant, with the client, with the financial systems, and a lot of other backup system. But I would say the process of design is still the same which we used to do it in first year, and till today what we are doing it, everything is the same. But it depends like how the people, the student comes out of the college and they start learning what experiences are needed. It always is an experience. We today at this age we are learning. So like learning is always a never-ending process. And yes, I would surely say that the failure has really taught us a lot of things. And like I would give an example, like we have tried for few projects in Kenya. We lost first project, we lost second project, we lost third project. Then I went to Kenya, stayed there for 15 days, and anyhow in 15 days we did another 2-3 good presentation for a large project, and we got it. So like it's always a process, and yes, in real life. But I'll reply to your question is that in the real life and the college life design process, I still believe is the same. The parameter changes, the system changes, and you need to deal much more professionally, which the student might not be required because you all are there to judge them. But yes, it's a process is the same.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Anybody else with any questions?
Yeah, I had a question. So if you could clarify for the students. So when you talk about design, now there are always parameters that you have to take into consideration when you begin designing, right? So how do you draw the line between what are client-centric parameters, what are design-centric parameters, where it relates to site, where it relates to cost, where it maybe even relates to ecology or sustainability. So
You breaking up.
how do you begin to draw that more parameters? Not audible.
You may have to repeat the last bit,
No,
Mridula.
can you repeat the question? Is half the
Yeah, so basically I was saying in terms of parameters that you consider when you design, and because they relate to so many different entities, the client, the fact that it needs to be maybe the cost aspect of it, the sustainability aspect of it, the site constraints. So how do you put together which parameters you are going to give, preference or prominence to? How do you structure your own design process in that sense?
Yeah, see, as I told that every architect there has their own process, and I won't say that any architect is bad or good. All are good architect. It's only you how you take your parameter into consideration. But now answering to your question, like always when we start the project, we get a different parameter, the requirement from the client. Many times it's an open-ended plot. The client tell us that you study the vicinity of it and tell us on this plot what can be the best thing which can really generate a good money. In professional life, more things revolve around your finances and how much the developer or the government institution are going to get benefited. It's never like the college that you design and you're going to get a first level or a second level or a third grade level. Same thing applies to the professional life also, but in the parameters, yes, We need to really compile all the parameters, studies in heart, and then it comes to the case study, like we discussed in the previous question, like how we used to do case study and what is needed for that particular thing. We need to consider everything, the parameters from the sun direction, the wind movement, your contour, your cutting filling at the site, and then we come to certain conclusion that these things are mandatory and without this thing is not possible. Then we take up the other parameters, like what is the client requirement, what going to be the finances, what going to be the thing, and then we, taking consideration into all these parameters, we start developing a different concept. And then after designing maybe 6, 7 themes for one of the project, then we choose one or two and then we move it further. So like parameters need to be considered in toto. It's not that like only one parameter we consider, but it need to be considered structurally, MEP, everything need to be considered and compiled in one box and then give it to the client for the further development or how we take it further.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions?
Sir, there is a question. Yeah, there is a question on the YouTube chat whether person is asking about economical viability of a design, like for architects as well as for the client. Then how do you manage to do, you know, uh, how do you manage to find a balance in that? Yes, sir.
I would say it's a good question, but unless your design, now, see, in college you design with an intention that you get a good mark, your design is appreciated. Same thing in professional life. Unless your design, we can call it the product. If you're not able to sell your product, you are nowhere. Your product need to generate a money. It need to upgrade your client. Otherwise, no client is going to pump in 100 crores of rupees on just the plot and then give you that whole project. Like a single project now in city like Bombay will cost nothing like that, 60-70 crore minimum. The project what we are handling is more than 15-20,000 crore. So like unless and until your design speaks the volume, and if it is able to sell, it is very important that you need to design looking at the parameters and the market conditions and the client requirement, and so that the whole product gets sold. Otherwise, the design does not have a value. We are there here to design for the people. We are not here to design for ourselves. So when you are designing for an open market, you need to be really smart enough to see how the market conditions work, what things are required by the people. You need to really study hard and then give the product or a design in such a way that it sells fast. And that's the where the I would say thing of an architect comes to the picture, and that's where we here are for. Like if you go to any professional doctor, you will definitely expect that your operation goes right. The same way, if any of the client or a government institution come to you, they obviously will say, yes, the thing need to go right, and that's how it has to work. So you need to be really doing very smart design, which is, I know everyone can do that, so that it sells fast and it can be in a very good level.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Faculty or students?
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm Manoj Gudekar and faculty in LSR. I want to ask you a question of in your experience of these many years.
I
want
cannot.
to ask how.
You're breaking up.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you in your comment on the change that the technology has brought over in terms of architecture design in the professional career now. I mean, since the technology is ever so evolving and right now it's kind of being at its peak, how has it changed the professional architectural career?
No, the technology in the sense of the construction you are talking, or the technology in the sense of the design development?
Both in terms of how right now most of the countries are focusing on BIM for performance and then BIM for kind of the overall construction process also. So if you could comment on that.
Okay, I would like to answer to the first part.
Yeah.
When we started our career, there were no computer. We used to do huge numbers of drawing manually. After that, the computer came into the picture, the speed increases. Today, with the sophistication and the computerization and the advancement of the thing, the visualization of your structure and the visualization of the design has drastically increased. Previously, we used to do manual rendering, manual perspective, and then after 10 days, we come to know that no, it's not looking good. Now, because of the advancement in the technology, it has really helped the architecture to design in a much more larger fashion, much more a better way. So I would say that technology is a very important part of every architecture, and it need to be taken care very smartly, which is the need of the day. And still further, it's going to keep on increasing every day. Now, related to the construction part of it, there are a lot of different construction. Previously, we used to do manual construction. Now we are doing with the machines and we are doing with a different kind of a technology. So the technology has really improved in the construction to change from the different type of a forms which were impossible in a few years back. Now it is everything is possible. Now even you can make the whole structure with a 3D modeling and on a 3D printer. So like there are few projects which are coming up in Dubai which is completely made on a 3D printer, and they just take the whole blocks and place it on the thing. So technology is a very important and integral part of the architectural system, which everyone need to upgrade themselves day by day, which is the most important, I would say. And definitely they're going to enhance the design aspect and everything.
Thank you so much, sir. Any other questions from either the students or staff? So Vibhu has asked, with having done a particular project, how do you as a designer analyze your takeaways from a project, then later come up with a different approach for a similar brief or another project? In such a case, what are the governing factors of design?
No, no,
Vibhu, are you around, Baba? Vibhu?
Yes, ma'am. Am I
Yeah,
audible?
yeah, you are. If you could just ask yourself.
Yeah. Hello, sir. I just had a doubt, as in, so when you look at the design process, like for example, you have done senior housing, different kinds of senior housing, and different scales for it as well. So when you look at it at a particular project brief that you get initially, you might have done it in a particular way, but later on, when you come across a similar brief later on sometime, how do you come up with a different approach to a same kind of design for a brief that is there? Is what I wanted. And in such a case, what are the governing factors?
yeah, it's a very good question. Yeah, I would like to answer it in a very detailed fashion. Like what you said is very right. Like like for example, if I offer you everyday lunch just the rice, after 10 days you're not going to like to eat that. Every day if I offer you the same chapati, you're not going to like it. We as an architect are there to create every day new, so that people keep on liking and keeps on evolving. You cannot just design the same kind of an houses for n number of years. We are there here to create every time new structure, new design, new technology, and that's how like the first project if you see it was a high-rise senior housing. The second project which you saw was like just a ground key structure, ground and one story. The third one in Goa was ground and four. Everyone has a different requirements, different things to evolve in it with a different contour system. So it has to be always different from different project. You can't just design the same thing again and again. You can't wear the same shirt for years. You need to just keep on changing, evolving, so that the people really like to see that. You see, any design need to be different always from the other. Am I answering to your query, or you have something else in mind on that?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah.
What I mean to say is your concept, your requirement is always the same, but the looks, the style, the thought process has to be always different. The requirement as a human being is more or less the same all across the globe. You go to maybe when we are working in Kenya, the climatic condition is different. When we work in Dubai, the climatic condition is different. But the human requirement is more or less the same. So first you need to understand the psychology that if you yourself are being placed in those kind of a sizes of the room, how are you going to feel it? Maybe when you are at the age of 60, when you use this kind of a system, how are you going to be feel? Or what things you will like it? When you start evolving those kind of questions inside you, it's definitely going to be much more a better design product which is going to come out of you. So always try and think like, put yourself in those shoes and see how it can be done better way. And I think that's where you'll be able to design much more smartly and much more faster and always in a different kind of a thing. because you can't just keep on doing the same thing again and again in everywhere. So my thing is that whenever you design, just forget the past, just look at the future and see what the current design you need to do it. Because if you always remember the past and see, then you will always try and create the same thing again and again. So whenever we get a new office or a new project in our office, we always backtrack all the old projects or the design. We never refer to that. We always see the new thing which are going to come in the technology or how we can take it further. So that's how we start evolving a different kind of a concept. All the project which I showed you today, it's all different sizes, the scale, the design. It's all different concepts. Some is modern, some is classical, some is semi-classical, some is Spanish. So it's a different variety, and you need to be definitely versatile to generate large amount of the work and how you will take it further.
Sanjeev sir, there is one question on the YouTube chat by Suhas. Suhas wants to ask, how do we calculate economic viability of a design for us as well as clients? No, no. In the sense that, sir, I think what we asked in the beginning was the. Acha, you Deepak has the same question. Okay, okay. Sorry, my bad, sir. I thought this question got missed out. Anyway, yeah, I think there is no other question in the chat box right now. If students want to ask, you can unmute yourself or raise your hand and please ask. In that case. So, in your opinion, what wins usually in the financial viability aspect? The client's finances or the architect's design style?
Actually, both work, but honestly, in the today's market, the client are much more smarter than you, and they have already worked out their finances much better before you design. So yes, design makes a lot of difference for the finances, but I would say that the client are much more smarter than you because they're going to pump in so much of the money, so they know what they are doing. The finances always have been properly calculated by them rather than an architect. We are a creative people. We just do creation for them, which sells. So our job is to look more toward the creative part of it and make the product look right and sell in the market. Them, they already know what they wanted and what going to sell. So financially, as far as my part is concerned, I have seen that most of our client and any of the government institution which we are working, they know what they are doing much before you. Because if a client is purchasing a plot of 100 crore, he know what he's going to make on it. So it's always vice
It's a
versa.
struggle. Yeah. Thank you so much, sir, for being so patient with our questions.
Thanks. It was nice talking to you all, and thanks very much.
Thank you, sir. One minute. Deepa ma'am, if you want to go.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much, sir. It was really a very insightful session, and we all are very much enlightened by your the talk, the interaction, as well as the presentation,
Thank you very much.
the projects that you have discussed with us.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, bye.
Bye bye, sir. Thank you so much for your
Bye.
time.
Bye.
You said, what's awesome.